Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Lisa Pezik Show. I am so excited about this one today because I have a friend that I just met at an event that we were at together. When was that? Like a month ago?
Yes.
Time
Oh my goodness, I know.
flies to think that that was like almost a month ago. But I have my dear friend Chloe here with me. And Chloe, let me tell you about her and what we're going to be talking about today. So after personal struggles with bullying, loss, and mental health, Chloe Helms, my friend here, took her own journey of self-discovery and created what is now her business, 2LV Inc. And I'll tell you what that is in a moment. As a current art teacher, God, we love teachers, and having spent many years prior in different classrooms at different grade levels, Chloe was able to see the true need for educating young children on loving themselves and positive thinking. So her business, meaning to love and to live, 2LV, provides tools for children's, teens, and adults that aid in personal growth and development of a positive mindset through self-reflection. While still working part-time in the classroom, she's a rock star, Chloe has managed to partner 2LV Inc. with 3 nonprofits and continues to make strides towards ending the stigma associated with mental health. Chloe, I'm so glad you're here with me. Hello.
I'm so happy to be here. Oh my goodness.
Wow. So
long journey.
We got up and she was able to share a little bit at the event. Kate Butler, who's our lovely mentor in our best-selling book that put on the event, put Chloe on the spot. Chloe didn't even know.
She did.
Go up.
She did. I know. And I'm still like, to this day, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, she's like, here's the microphone. Come up here and tell everyone about what has transpired for you in this past year, because you had gone to a similar event by Kate, which is the name, the year prior, and tell us about what's happened for you in this past year. So tell us a little bit about that, kind of what you shared and what's gone on in the last year for you.
Wow. Okay. So much. So let me try and condense that for you guys. Yeah. Yeah. So I had been brought to Kate's event a year ago, by my sister who had worked for Kate at the time. And she was like, you need to come to this. You need to come to this. I had these kind of ideas flowing about, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but mental health and, I'll talk about that later, but it's always been something that's been very close to me. And the discussion of suicide prevention is something that's really near and dear to my heart. So I had always wanted to do something in that realm. I wanted to bring attention to it. So when my sister, she knew of my ideas and thoughts for this, this organization, this business, this mission. And she was like, just come. I don't want to go alone. Come. So I got dressed up. I was like, okay, I have no idea what to expect. And I remember we walked in, knew nobody in the room, not a soul other than Kate. And of course she's the star on stage. She's fantastic. And we just take a seat, and I happened to be sitting at this table. And I remember some of the people at my table. There was Patty Aubrey, who was mentor, a wonderful woman. We had who else was there? Mandy Scanlon was at our table. It was just, I remember we had an exercise while we're sitting there. All these women are going up, they're sharing, they're telling their stories of, trial and error and success and failure and, all these emotional battles that they face to get to where they are. And they're so inspiring. And we sat there and they were like, why are you here today? You have to tell your neighbors why you're here today. And I remember my sister was like, well, I work for Kate. I was asked to come. Nice to meet you. And they got to me and I was like, well, I hadn't really vocalized fully this concept. So I think it was very scary to me, especially at the time, I'm 23 years old and I'm sitting in a room with these, intelligent, experienced women that are more than double my age that have had these amazing careers and lives. And I felt very immature and not worthy of sitting at the table. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think when I was able to vocalize that, and I had the feedback that I did, and I remember Patty Aubrey just started taking notes, and she's like, I want to speak to you when you make this a success. She's like, I want to talk with you when you succeed in this, because you will. And I think that positive feedback and reaction to something that I was so unsure of at the time really kind of shifted my thought process and realizing you're capable of still working and still, you know, continuing on the career path that you had chosen prior, and still kind of making these little, you know, side hustles and moving on into the fact that, you know, you don't have to just stick in one. You know, the world isn't, I don't think it's built for you to just be a lawyer or just be a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, you have the opportunity to make these footprints in different directions along that same path, right? That's just like kind of your vehicle to get there. Yes. So that's like, my way I looked at it, you know, teaching was my vehicle to understand why.
Oh, okay. I want to stop you for a second, because you just like, whoa, hey, time out.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Let's go back a second, because holy shit, you dropped some bombs even right there in the first 2 minutes that you start talking. I think it was really powerful, the first thing you said, where you vocalized it fully for the first time.
Yeah.
Because how many of us have these dreams that in our brain probably seem so far out, so crazy, so like off the wall.
I know.
And then you say it and people are like, yeah, that's happening. Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, why not? And then by you vocalizing it, it's like you owned it in that moment. It's like, well, shit, now I said it.
Yes.
You know what, right?
There's no taking it back now. Yeah.
Right? So I love that when you've got a vision, when you've got an idea, when you've got a plan, whether it's someone you trust or a group of people you trust, or like you did, you just threw yourself into people you didn't even know, and you had the courage to say it, is huge. So that's a huge first step that I think people can take, and I want to encourage listeners to take.
Absolutely.
Just say it. Just say it with no outcome. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. Just say it. Don't be tied to the outcome. And then I think, again, you know, I love that you shared you were 23 at the time. You're 24 now. And
yeah, now you're older.
Look out, 25, right? That you felt that like you weren't, like you, maybe you almost like you didn't belong, because you're like, oh my God, there's all these women with these big careers and they've done so much. And I think a lot of people feel that, how do I measure up in this room? And am I an imposter? And should I even be here? And whether that's a boardroom or a classroom, or maybe your kids even thinking that you teach, like, I think no matter what age you are, sometimes we worry about, like, how am I measuring up right now? And I love that Patty looked at you and said, you know, I got you. Like, talk to me when you do this. It's happening for you. So it was someone who believed in you. And I feel like that is, and getting to know you and talking to you, that is kind of what you're doing with your business. And we'll talk about those, you know, 3 arms and charities going on. But it's like, you're doing that now for other people. You're saying, I got you. I'm going to help you. There's resources for you. There's things for you. And listeners on the podcast, I know you can't see it, but Chloe has a shirt on right now that says worthy. And we're going to talk about that, because she's got a clothing line with these businesses that, so tell me, actually, let's talk about that now. Tell me about the basis behind, because there's, the shirt is the reverse. You see it.
Yeah.
You read it. Tell me a little bit about that.
So the shirt is the whole, it really is kind of the foundation of it. And I know that sounds really silly. The shirt is the foundation, but I like to tell people it's not, you know, it's not a fashion business. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, you sell apparel, right? And I'm like, right, we have other things and we offer more, but this is where it started. This is where it stemmed. But it's a tool. right? I tell people that the t-shirt is a tool, because if we're walking around every day with something, we should at least have something on our being, whether it's in our purse, whether it's on us, whether it's a tattoo, something that's a reminder of your self-worth, that you are capable, that you have potential, that you're loved, unique, something that's a reminder for those days when you're just hitting rock, right? Because it's going to happen, right? We're going to have days where it's going to happen, but sometimes you just need that little, that little snap back to reality. And I think it's just like, this is my way of doing that. So the idea behind this whole t-shirts thing is basically, I started it really with myself. I hit this point where, and I'll talk to you later on about that, but, I had this family history that is associated with, mental illness. And I myself have suffered in the past. And it took me quite a while to get to a point where I was really comfortable with who I am. And, I'm young and I'm still learning every single day. So it's not to say that I don't struggle, right? I'm not preaching that I'm perfect and I love myself and I'm done, right? You're never done. So I think that's really important that people know, I'm still going through it every day. So I'm still practicing what I preach every single day. It's just a matter of getting to that point where it becomes a habit. So for me, I got to this point where I was really, really low, and I had surrounded myself with these people that were very high, right? And they always tell you, surround yourself with the people that you want to, embody. You want to embody those characteristics. But it got to a point where I was really relying on them to kind of get me to that place, right? I didn't know how to use that as fuel to get myself there on my own. I wanted them to be the source of my happiness rather than myself. So when that wasn't happening, I just got really low and I couldn't quite dig myself out of it. I felt like I was in quicksand. And I remember I would just sit in front of the mirror in my room at the time, and I would just tell myself these things that were super, super negative because I was depressed. And finally I was like, you know what, I'm going to turn the tables. I was like, let's just try something, right? Yeah. And I started saying it, and then I remember laughing. I laughed and then I cried because it felt so foreign. And it wasn't that these people around me weren't telling it to me. I just didn't believe it. So that was where, that's where it stems. You have to believe those things. So as much as, people on social media, you get these likes and these comments, you're beautiful, you're fantastic. But if you don't believe those yourself, it doesn't really help. It helps for that split second that you feel that instant gratification, and then it dwindles again because it's not within you. So these shirts represent words that I would repeat back to myself over and over and over and over again for months on end, until finally I woke up one day and I walked past my mirror. Sticky notes I put on them because I forgot. I just knew it. Do you know what I mean? And then when I walked back and I was like, oh, I forgot my routine. But then I kind of hit this point where I was like, wow, that's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something. So I started actually applying that in the classroom. I actually took a handheld mirror, and I had my students choose phrases that they wanted to be for the day. So we would get beautiful, smart, brave, strong, intelligent, unique, loved. So it was really powerful to watch these kids, and they were ranged from kindergarten to third grade. Wow. Just watch them kind of do this as part of their morning routine, and they get excited. If we forgot to do it, they would remind you. Believe me, they would remind us. And so it got to this point where when we would get to a math lesson and there was a little girl who was really struggling at the time, I was like, do we have to get out the mirror? And she'd be like, yes, we have to get out the mirror. And so we would say, I'm smart. And then finally, it almost miraculously, and I say miraculously, but that one problem she would understand, right, and grasp in a different way. So for me, watching her excel, and not to the point where, test scores were changed dramatically, but to the point where it was significant enough to know that that little boost of confidence that they were receiving for those 10 minutes that we applied that in the classroom actually made a change. So imagine if you take that across your life, right? You carry that at home, you carry that at work, you carry that at school, you carry it with your family members. Imagine if you take that, all the way. So that's really where the idea for this came about, was if we could have that reflection every day and really apply that to when we looked at ourselves and have that subconscious thought. You know what I mean? When I look in the mirror, I can read this. So I'm seeing myself and I'm seeing the phrase. So it's connecting the two. And that's where it really kind of came about, is we need to alter our minds. We need to alter the way we think.
I love that. I cannot even tell you how much. Words cannot even express how much I love everything that you just said, because I think about my little guy who's 5. And I think about having a teacher like that instills those life lessons, exactly like you said, where you're like, it's not so much about the test scores and on paper how they're looking and doing. It's like what they say to themselves every day, that feeling about that confidence and that feeling about themselves that is going to change. And you had a massive impact on that. And that's something that's going to stay with them for the rest of their life. And then again, just that impact, it's so personal to you, because you didn't just come up with this idea and go, hey, I think this would be a fun fad thing, let me just try it.
Right.
I love how you said the t-shirt is a tool. So we think about personal development books we read, motivational things that we read. And exactly like you said, it's maybe that little hit of in that moment, we get it and we see it. But having that, you made a practice out of it. And that's when it stuck. And the shirts are kind of just the shirts aren't the end game. The shirts are like the beginning to get you aware of the greatness inside of you and your capability. And when you put that into practice, it then becomes a piece of you, a piece of your DNA and the way you feel about yourself. And I love that it's that you see it in the mirror. I absolutely love that. And you developed, there's 3 different types of lines, or 3 different people or that you kind of serve. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So the background, at least with my family, I had lost my grandfather. It'll be 18 years this coming week, to suicide. And for me, that just took a tremendous toll on the mental health and the way my family kind of viewed different things in life. So
how can I just stop you for a sec? How is your grandfather, you said, right?
Yeah.
That you lost to suicide. How old was he? Like in his 70s or 80s?
He was in his 60s at the time. Yeah, he was in his 60s. And he was a veteran, and it was 6 days after 9/11. So to think the impact that certain things kind of really played, the roles that things played in that, for a long time, I didn't quite understand it. I was young. So it's not something that you grasp. And for me, it wasn't necessarily, I miss my grandfather. I wish I had him here with us every single day. But for me, it was more my father, how it affected him. And then growing up and knowing what had happened and really kind of being like, okay, that's why maybe that month is really tough. Or maybe, to see this is where that low point that he hit makes sense. It makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So really being able to relate the two, it really became really impactful, at least from my childhood and really my growth mentally, and understanding on a deeper level the consequences that things like that have. Because I think in today's world it's talked about so nonchalantly, and it's not. I say it all the time, but it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And it's a disease, and it's something that needs to be treated as such. It's not the person's fault. I don't believe that. I think that it's genuinely an illness that needs to be discussed and treated. So I think that if we can really instill that in the home and in the schools, that can at least be a little starting point.
So veterans were one,
veterans, exactly. So that kind of goes back into it. So when I started this, I really my father owns a business. So for me, it was really helpful to really watch him and kind of feed off of him, because he was such an inspiration to it, and say, well, how am I going to do this? How should I do this? What are your thoughts on this? And, I said from the get-go, I want to give back to these organizations that helped my family. You know what I mean? I don't want to compete with them, right? I don't want to compete against them. I want to work with them. They're phenomenal. They impact lives every single day. I want to work alongside them. So for me, I mean, at 24, knocking on business doors, these nonprofits doors, to these offices and these phone calls, and, and then it was always funny, because I'd talk on the phone with them first, and they'd answer, and they'd come into the boardroom for the meeting, and they'd be like, how old are you? Do you know what I mean? And so it was always just like a really funny and nice, like, segue into the conversation. But they were absolutely phenomenal. So the veterans, we work with Give an Hour. And it's a foundation that was founded by Dr. Barbara Van Dalen, and she's this amazing, amazing psychiatrist, and it works primarily with veterans dealing with PTSD and their families, children whose parents are deployed, because I think they're very widely overlooked. These kids that, I think are really, dealing with their parents who are coming then back home and are still struggling with that mentality and mindset, and it affects theirs as well. So I love working with them on that. So we have our Forever Heroes campaign, and those t-shirts, we have 10% that then goes back into their organization. We have our Healthy Heads campaign, which is the t-shirt I'm wearing now. So those are teens and adults, any type of mental health. We work with NAMI of Philadelphia, but NAMI is a national, U.S. national organization that works with mental illness. So they're the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and they hold events every single day. There's the one that I work with, 3 incredible women that work day and night to make sure that there is always a space for people that are struggling in lower income. There's always a space for people kind of coming out of rehab and trying to integrate back into society. They're just phenomenal. So that's our Healthy Heads. And then, of course, we have our Growing Up Strong, which is for our children. So it's our youth campaign. And we work with the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide. And we give back, we give 10% back to them. And we have t-shirts that say, pretty and powerful and smart and strong, and my future's bright. And it's incredible to see the younger children, because we have toddlers t-shirts as well. So it's incredible to see the little ones, their first words that they're able to read are ones of positivity that are back to them. Do you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily just an animal book. You can teach your children how to, we have parents that come back to us and they're like, we're able to teach our kids how to read based on these phrases of positivity. So it's really just learning. For me, at least, I know that that's something I really want to instill in my children way in the future, but still, I want them to, I think that's where we really have to start. You know what I mean? We have to start with these generations to come, because I really truly feel, statistically it's getting worse and it's scary. So yep. I think that, that's definitely that was a huge part of the company and the creation of it. This spilled so much information.
I'm never usually speechless, and I'm just in awe of this whole thing. And, we know that our thoughts are so powerful. You read any research now that's out there, you listen to any mind, body specialist, expert, even in the medical community, they're getting a little bit more wiser to alternative therapies and just how powerful your thoughts day to day and your mind is. And we have conversations with ourselves, whether we want to admit that or not, all day long. That voice is going in our head. And as you said, if we can, as an adult or a teen, reprogram that, or as a toddler and a baby, start off right with the right programming and the right messaging. And I think it's such a great tool, because I know for me as a parent, sometimes as parents, we're like, my God, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right
Yeah.
thing? Like, I don't want to mess up my kid. Like,
Right.
Sometimes we're like, we don't have all the answers.
Mhm.
None of us do. But this
No.
is a tool that can start that dialogue and start the conversation and start things, in the right direction. And I just love absolutely everything that you said. That's so powerful. And another thing, I love that you said collaboration over competition, where you were saying with these groups, you're like, I didn't want to compete with them. I wanted to collaborate with them and say, hey, we can really come together and do some great work together. And I think that's so wise at your age to be like, I don't want to compete. I want to collaborate, because sometimes people don't think that way. They think, what's in it for me? What's the most profit I can gain? What's the most bang for my buck? And we don't realize that when you align with other people, how much more powerful that message and that solution can get moved along. So I love that. And do you think you had some business sense? You said your dad's a business owner. Do you think he instilled some of that entrepreneurial or like business owner or just working kind of mindset in you?
Of course. And I think just watching it, especially working from home, just seeing that kind of how he developed in that way. And I talk a lot about too, my grandfather was a business owner. I'm third generation, and it's, to me, I kind of take it with, a little bit of pride in that, the fact that I was able to turn that tragedy into something positive and almost like change that legacy a bit. And change the direction of it. My grandfather worked in construction, my father works in construction, and I work with mental health, because I turned that around a little bit. And I think that definitely living with it and watching him really like breathe it all in and create something from nothing, to me, is absolutely incredible. Seeing that, as an artist and as a teacher, watching things develop is something that I love. So I think that the whole business, I looked at it differently than, someone with a business background. I looked at it as, I'm going to create something. I looked at it from an artist point of view, and I was like, I'm going to create it. I had to learn a lot. It was definitely a learning curve, but I took each day as it came. And I still am learning. I'm still learning. I still want to learn more. Like, I want to grow more in it, but I'm creating. And I think it's important we all look at things like that, is create. Like, I think creating something from your own heart and head can really change the trajectory of your life. I think it can change the way that maybe some people might think they're not going down the right path, or the path that they really want. To look at it as, you want to create something that's better.
Amen, sister. So talk to me a second about how so you're an art teacher and you're still working, you're still teaching.
Yeah.
So talk to me a bit about how you're managing teaching and this project. I'm not even going to call it a side hustle. Those that know me, I despise that word, because it's not a side hustle. It's your passion project. It's your, I'm sure the days when you're not teaching with your family, with your boyfriend, doing your thing, you are working on this business. It matters. So I hate when we discount it and we call it a side hustle, because it makes it sound like a hobby, and it ain't no hobby. So tell me how you make this all work, because a lot of people, I think, use that as an excuse. I have this passion project and I want to do this, but I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have the money. How do you make this all work? Tell us.
So I actually, I'm tired a lot.
That's what we both have.
I'm tired a lot. But no, I think if you want something to work enough, it will, first and foremost. And I think that's something that you all hear, and it's a lot easier said than done. You know what I mean? You still want to be able to go shopping or relax and watch a movie, and you still can. I think that when people say there's not enough time, it's focusing on the scarcity of something. And when you focus on the scarcity of something, you're going to continue to realize that, there's a lack, but there doesn't have to be. So for me, I pencil in time for everything. I still continue to pencil in time for myself. And that doesn't mean that I don't sometimes get a little emotional, like, how am I doing this, right? Because I just had the other day a night where I was in tears because I had lesson planning. I had back to school night with parents. I had emails that had to be sent for 2LV. I had this podcast that I was like, I want to mentally prepare for it. I want to come into it in full, right? So I think that you have all these things that you're trying to align and still make time for yourself and go to the gym and eat well. And people don't think that they can do it all. But if you can make time to sit on your phone and to scroll and to, look up different things on social media or sit on the phone, you can do that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're plenty capable. So I think that time management is not talked about enough, right? I think that especially with young kids and procrastination and, distractions that we have, I think time management is not focused on enough. And if there's things that we sometimes think are priority aren't, right? So I think it's really understanding what priority means. And for me, working on this is a priority to my own well-being. It's a priority for my well-being. I need to spend a certain amount of time on this, right? It's not because I need to run this business, right? And it's not because I am, I started this, I can't fail, like I owe someone this time, blah, 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 right? I need this. I started something that I need as fuel for myself. So I think if you can get into something and you find something that you're that passionate about and you live and breathe it, it's not finding time for it. It's part of your daily self-care routine. So I think that's the way for me to succeed in that, I have to, and to succeed in both, I need to look at both of those in that way.
Oh, and I've never heard someone talk about it like that before. I've heard people talk about their why, exactly like you said, why this needs to be successful, why this needs to work. Again, tied again to that end outcome and that expectation where you're like, this is fuel for me. This is no different than like eating breakfast.
My cup of coffee.
Putting gas in the car, brushing my teeth. Like, you're like, this is a part of me. This is a part of my day. This is a part of something that matters to me. And those are the businesses and people and things that are the most successful when I always call it taking the underdog to the winner. And the way the underdog wins is because they won't quit. They won't quit no matter how many times they're overwhelmed, as you talked about, like emails and lessons plans and things. Like, no matter how many times they're overwhelmed or frustrated or confused or failed or things don't get sent out and shipped out, or things don't happen the way you plan them to, things get printed wrong or whatever happens, you're not going to quit. You're not going to give up because it's fuel to you. How many entrepreneurs can sit there and say their business is fuel to them? How many people can sit there and say their daily activities are fuel to them? That's such a beautiful reminder of, are you doing what you love? And are you doing what matters to you? Oh, God, I love that so much. What would you say, so to someone who doesn't have this t-shirt, doesn't have the tool, like back to yourself when you were in front of that mirror, saying those words, laughing, then crying, like something sparked you to go and do that. Like, what would you say to someone who truly is at like the lowest of the low? And they just need something. They need a nugget. They need a morsel of some hope. What would you say to them?
I think at some point in time, I think something that helps me a lot, at least, everyone has a day where you at least envision what your best life could be, right? You envision what that dream is when you really want something, but it's really not practical, even if it's something that's really material. I see myself driving a Lamborghini, down Hollywood Boulevard or something like that, right? You have that. Everyone has, I think, something that helps them to get up in the morning. Otherwise, you wouldn't get up in the morning. If you didn't have some type of envisioning of even for a split second, of what good life is and good quality of life is, there's nothing to fuel you or make you go to work, right? So I think for those people that are still really, really low, but you're still here, you're still in it.
Yeah.
Take that thought you had maybe when you were 10 years old, 12 years old, 22, whatever it may have been. Take that one single thought. And even if you can't vocalize those positive words yet, or you think it's, I always say hootenanny or baloney, because I know people sometimes think it's ridiculous, right? Write it, right? Pen to paper, hand to word, that mind body connection is still there. Write it down, right? You don't have to say it. You don't have to look at yourself when you say it, but write it down, because you're still reading it, right? It's still coming from somewhere up here. It's still coming from that subconscious place. And to put that on paper, they say that's the best way to study, right? Instead of typing notes, the best way to study is to actually write things down. And it's how you remember things. So I think for those people that are really low and really struggling, maybe don't want a t-shirt, they don't want to look at themselves and say those things, take a note and scratch it in there. And if you want to cross it down afterwards, do that, but then do it again. Just take that small second, that minuscule amount of time in your entire life to just work. That, to me, is a step towards that small dream that you might have had when you were younger.
I love that. That is such a good, that's so actionable and doable and beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Sure. So getting in touch with you. So your website is www.2lvinc.com.
Yes.
Facebook is 2LV Inc. and Instagram is 2LV_Inc. Yes?
Yes.
I will put that in the show notes. So don't worry if you are driving or washing dishes where you don't have a pen and paper, that you can write this down and go on. And if anyone's listening and they have a platform to speak, please have Chloe on it, because I feel like this message needs to be spread. You have events coming up. You got things coming up. If not, go on and buy these shirts. I know I am. I am buying them for my entire family. Do you have shirts for little boys?
I do, of course. Yeah.
You got men, women. I'm going to buy them for my entire family. And doesn't a piece of it that you buy goes towards these collaborations?
That nonprofit. So when you go on the site, you can actually scroll down right on the front page. It tells you each campaign and it tells you what the organization is. So even if for those of you out there listening, even if it's not something maybe you want to necessarily buy a t-shirt, right? Go on at least onto these organizations, find ways that you can donate or volunteer and help them, because it really does make a difference.
Yeah, every little bit counts. And the more we have this conversation, the more we bring it into our awareness, the more we use these tools, as you said, whether it's writing a note or a t-shirt or vocalizing it or just having it come up, that we end that stigma that it's okay to feel the way you feel and there's help.
Right?
There's help.
100% of the time. We don't want to forget that.
And that is the message that we're spreading. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Oh my God, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
You guys can't see Chloe, but I just want to scoop her up and hug her. I just love her so much. And when she got up and talked at this event, I was like, that is a woman on it. I didn't care your age at your 23, 24. You are a peer and a beautiful woman. And I just looked at her and I said, damn, she is doing something that matters. And I want to support that. So, thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Oh my goodness.
Yay. So guys, I will put all this stuff in the show notes. Stay in touch with Chloe. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Lisa Pezik Show.